no matter what we are doing, whether we are inviting our friends or departed relatives or anything else, we can always maintain this central mental quality called sati, translated as mindfulness, or my preferred term, presence. Whatever we are doing at any time, whenever we remember, we can always re-establish this quality, presence. Without conscious training, this quality is not there very often in normal people who don't know Buddha's teachings. From time to time, maybe it may be there like brief flashes, but most of the time, most of the people are running on automatic pilot. They have no control over their minds, and they don't even know that such a control is possible. That's what I remember I myself was like before 1992. So that's 40 years ago, before I came across Buddha's meditation. I just didn't know that mental training was possible. My parents were sportsmen, athletes, and they also lead us, myself and my brother and sister, into sports. So I knew something about training the body, but I didn't know, even though I was studying psychology at the time I met Buddha's meditation, I still didn't know that it was possible to train also the mind. Only after this first meditation retreat, which was in 1992, so that's 30 years. I also studied mathematics, so I should be able to calculate quite easily, but I forgot. So before this retreat I didn't know, and that was basically the first discovery for me after this 3-day retreat, that it was possible to also methodically and systematically train the mind. So, and it took many years for me to understand a little bit maybe what this practice is about. So now I can see quite clearly that what we focus upon when we do this part of training, which is called bhavana, the central quality is this quality of presence. Now, when we are trying to develop it, also the effort, this other quality, virya, effort becomes more clear, because if we know the presence, the presence is right now, if you are listening to me, at the same time you know that you are listening, that's presence, that's sati. And once you understand this, what sati is, presence, then you have some better idea about effort, how to maintain this quality, this presence. For you, in this situation, it stays that you are listening, and at the same time, you may try to be aware of that you are listening. For me, I'm talking, so I can keep talking, and if I maintain this idea that I should be also aware of it, I can keep talking also while knowing that I am talking. This is presence in my case. But anyway, at any time, whatever you are doing, you may always try to maintain this quality of presence. And the focus of this quality is always exactly that activity that you are doing at the present moment, right? And it's why it is called presence. So, when listening, you may keep listening while knowing that you are listening. This is difficult though, we don't, before we develop enough momentum of presence, we are normally using more easy situations for training it. So formal meditation is kind of the easiest setting, So when you are sitting with closed eyes, there is nothing much to distract you, and then you are just focusing on what you are doing when you are doing sitting meditation. So the most obvious thing is breathing. You cannot stop breathing. Breathing is always there. So when you are sitting with closed eyes without any other movement, the only movement which stays is this breathing in, breathing out. So it's quite obvious thing to simply be aware of it while knowing that you are aware of it, which is sati. But it's not the only thing. If sometimes watching the mind becomes sort of bored, and boredom is low energy, low virya. So you may also decide to be aware in between breaths, when there is breathing in, breathing out. At that moment, if there is a short break, at that time you may be aware of another thing that you are doing at that moment. That means sitting. So how does it feel? This straight, upright posture of trunk, how it feels, how it is maintained. So you may become aware of this increased pressure along the spine, in the muscles, which is air element supporting. So how is this upright posture? How is it maintained? This supporting. You may notice increased tension along the spine or in the muscles. And then you may remove this idea of muscles, because we know about muscles from school. If you just with closed eyes, if you just watch the sensations in the body and you take only those, if you try to forget the idea of muscles and anatomy and so on, because that's from outside. That's not really what the Buddha taught. It is there, but from the meditation point of view, it's not important. Muscles are not important. What is important is to notice this increased sort of tension or pressure in some parts of the body, and that's what Buddha called air element. So now, if we may try to move hand and watch from within, from inside, how it happens that the hand moves. So first we may notice intention. The mind at some point starts intending to move the hand, and then as a result, tension within arm increases, and then the movement happens. So that's how we see connections between the mind and the body. But anyway, this movement can also become an object of presence, of mental development. So it's this presence and effort to arouse this quality and maintain it. And just one more thing. Today I realized also that it's important to understand how this practice works in terms of what we are aiming at. So we cannot decide to be present continuously and then, like through willpower or anything, to maintain continuity. we aim at continuous presence, but we cannot make it happen. We only can wait until this continuity develops by itself, basically. So we need to define for ourselves what our effort should be, and this also took me many years to realize. The task is to re-establish presence whenever we remember. The task is not to maintain continuity, because we don't have much control over that. When we remember, at that moment we are present, and at that moment we may decide, okay, now I will be present. So we maintain this presence, but at some point it's inevitable, and we cannot prevent it by deciding to prevent it. It's inevitable. The mind forgets. So there is lapse of presence. This forgetting and being swept by a stream of events, and going again for some time without presence. That's inevitable. But because we have met Buddha's teachings, we understand hopefully what sati is, what presence is. At some point, the mind by itself remembers. And again, how can we influence? When we forget, we are lost, and at the time we cannot do anything, right? And then the mind remembers. So our task is, whenever mind remembers, to decide to be present. That's it. And the problem is that quite often we do remember, but we get discouraged. We say, "Oh, I was not present again. That's terrible, hopeless. Forget about it. I will wait until I have time to meditate formally." So this is where we go astray. So again, the task is, whenever the mind remembers, to re-establish presence and let it be there as long as it stays by itself. So this is much better way to understand the practice than thinking that you can, through willpower, you can maintain continuity of presence, because you cannot. Nobody can. And also it's good to realize that only Arahat is present continuously without any lapse. Only Arahat. This is the final goal. So trying to do this through willpower, even in our unenlightened state, is kind of, it's misunderstanding. So